sees the screen. It's okay, great.
Yep, we can see it just fine, Brian.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate being allowed to give a brief presentation. Don't intend to go too long on this.
This conference will now be recorded.
We want to go over some items that we're working on. We, as many of you know, we have been working on a comprehensive operations analysis for the past year, and we are now to the point where we're ready we're rolling out the plan for what we're proposing to do, and have titled it Reimagine City Bus. And part of this is making sure that we're addressing some budget shortfalls that we saw 2 years ago, and then also just reimagining our route structure and seeing how we can serve the community that we have today better. I gave the wrong date. It's not 2005, it's 2025. So we'll move on from that. But two topics. First would be fares. We have been doing public comment on a revised fare structure. For those that aren't aware, our current fare structure is $1 for a one-way trip with a free 30-minute transfer, but not in the backhaul direction. So you can transfer to a different route to complete a trip, but you aren't able to go back on the route that you took to get there. And our proposed fare structure would be to go to a regular fare of $2 per trip and eliminate transfers, but rather just have the $2 would pay for 2 hours of access to the system. So if you had a trip that you needed to complete and it was to the store and back and it was less than 2 hours, you'd actually be able to complete that trip with a single fare. And then we kind of go through each of these elements. Currently, anybody under the age of 19 rides at no charge, and we are recommending that we begin charging youth ages 9 to 19 $1, so a half fare, maintaining the half fare for seniors, passengers with a Medicare ID, and individuals with disabilities would all pay half fare. One element of our route structure is express routes, where we provide service under contract to some apartment complexes, but because we are federally funded, we're not able to run a charter service or something that's closed door and it's open to the public. However, if you're an apartment complex and you're paying for service, obviously you don't want the surrounding apartment complexes that don't pay for that service to be able to tout that as something that those folks can ride as well for a low price. And so we are taking our express route fare to $5. The rationale behind $5 is that if you take our fixed route expenses and divide it by the number of trips that we do, it costs us roughly $5 a trip for our fixed route service. So we're able to tell the partners that we have contracts with that that the general public that would be riding the routes that they subsidize are paying their proportional share of that trip. They're just paying for it by the trip rather than paying for it by the hour the way the apartment complexes do. We are maintaining our agreement with Ivy Tech. They pay us a fee, and we provide unlimited access to anybody with a valid Ivy Tech ID. And we have established children under the age of 8 riding with a fare paying rider would not have to pay. And if somebody is certified for our access routes, that's our demand response or the service that would come to your door and pick you up. It's part of the federal regulations that we offer that service. And we currently charge $2 for a one-way trip on that service. And we are doing an experiment where we are, for the first 6 months of this fare structure, going to leave it at $2. So it'll actually be the same as riding the fixed route. If you are certified as an access rider, you can actually ride on the fixed route for no additional charge because we do want to incentivize folks who are eligible to ride the fixed routes because it's cheaper for us to provide it. But as far as riding the demand response, that paratransit service, the amount of additional revenue we would get from charging $4 instead of $2, we're limited to charging no more than double our fixed route fare. So we'd be entitled to charge up to $4 for an access ride, but we are holding that at $2 because the impact to that population is not worth the additional revenue that we would realize from it. Back here. And we are proposing the elimination of the semester pass and going to a 6-month pass. We have gotten some feedback from both Purdue and from riders that we may want to keep the semester pass, and we'll have to figure out what price point we would offer that at. But this is why we take it out to the public in the first place, is to get feedback and information on what we're proposing. Another large element of this revised fare structure is going to a system that can validate the fares. So we are installing this summer fare validators where passengers can either tap a physical card that they can get, or they can use their smartphone and download the app and use their smartphone to tap the validator. And what that does is that if you're paying basically by the ride, you can load $2 worth of value on your smartphone, tap the validator, and it'll charge you the $2. For the second trip, you could ride and you tap your phone and it would charge you another $2. But at that point, if you needed a third ride that day, you've paid the equivalent of a day pass. A day pass is proposed to be $4 under this fare structure. And you could ride an unlimited number of times that day because you have now paid the equivalent of a day pass. Where this helps out is that not everybody who rides our buses is able to assemble the $4 all at once. They might need to go somewhere and get some additional money to pay for it, or they basically they are short on funds in one way or another. This allows them to take advantage of the things like a day pass, even if they don't have the money up front to pay for it. And then as you ride, if you're a frequent rider, you can pay for the equivalent of a monthly pass, or a 31-day pass is proposed to go to $50, but you can pay that over 13 trips. If you were to ride 13 times in a month, where you ended up getting a day pass, you've now paid for the equivalent of a 31-day pass, and your smartphone or your physical card that you've tapped on the validator would then register as a 31-day pass for the rest of that time period. This is a way to try to offset some of the impact of that increase. And next, to talk about Reimagine City Bus and what we're going for there. A quick review: our comprehensive operations analysis that's been going on for the past year. Demand for our service far exceeds what we're able to provide. Just like any kind of governmental service, there's always a desire for more. And I will say that in the 30 years that I've been working in transit, our low performing routes are higher than many industry averages and would be considered valid and successful routes, even though for us they're the lowest ridership routes. Our board has set service standards of 75% of our budget should be focused on frequent service, and 25% of our budget for fixed route should be focused on coverage. And what that has led to for us is dividing our services up into core service routes and local service routes. And the elements of those is that core service would have 20-minute frequency, the local service would have 30-minute frequency, and we're able to reduce travel time to destinations and also provide consistent Saturday service that is almost identical to what's offered Monday through Friday. Challenges for us in this, and part of where I say demand exceeds supply, is that we are struck with a $3 million budget shortfall that we have been able to piecemeal together basically and cover with some of our federal funding. But a long-term, it's not a long-term solution. So we are looking at that core service reducing from midnight down to 9 p.m. and that the local service would be offered from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the thing that really is, frankly, a bit of a gut check for us is the Sunday service would be eliminated. And it's not an option that we wanted to go to or something that we're happy that that's part of what we're doing. But the elimination of Sunday service allows us to do better service on Saturdays and allows for better service in the evenings on the core routes. So it is as with everybody, I'm sure on this call, life is a trade-off, whether it's personal or governmental. And this is one of the trade-offs. To give you an idea of the route structure, this is our proposed updated route structure with the entire service map. We will still cover quite a bit of both areas. And what this does, though, is you can see here in Lafayette, we are proposing to have core service run along all of these routes with 20-minute frequency. And so what does that mean? That would mean that if you're standing at Main Street in Kossuth, you could expect a bus to come by going towards Ivy Tech every 20 minutes. And if you're on the other side of the road, you could expect a bus coming back and heading towards downtown every 20 minutes. And as you can see, this does, we believe, a better connection between the elements of town where we're establishing transfer points that I'll get more into here in a minute. So that's the Lafayette side of the river. On the West Lafayette side, our highest ridership route was previously it's called 4B. We're proposing to call it McCormick Road Route. And it transported in last year out of the 4.3 million trips that we did, it represents 1 million of those 4.3 million trips. So it hasn't changed all that much. It is a little bit more streamlined. It doesn't go up 231, I believe that is, and come around anymore. It would just come across Lindbergh and up Northwestern to the Walmart there. And then local routes, and this is a little bit harder to see, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but in order to make sure that we're not leaving people kind of out in the cold, so to speak, we are proposing continuing to run local routes just with limited service and on 30-minute frequencies. You can see that we would still be servicing community corrections, for example, and the North Side neighborhood. And then also you can see routes that we've put together to operate for coverage to Jeff and Tecumseh and to the Walmart on the south side. And then on the West Lafayette side, we have strong ridership along the Happy Hollow route, and then up here on the Northwestern. And frankly, there's obviously, as everybody knows, quite a bit of development going to be going on up in this corridor. So we may see even more demand up in that neck of the woods. And that's the end of the slideshow portion of what I wanted to present. And then if I can bring up, hopefully you'll be able to see, are you able to see our website now? And I'm almost done. I promise not to take too much more time. So on our website, when you first load it in, you see Keep City Bus Moving, and you can learn more. That will take you to this screen where you can get detailed maps and understanding of where we're proposing the routes to go. And then you can go. One thing I'd like to highlight and encourage everybody to share is please let folks know about our survey. We want to hear how this is going to affect you and what, is there things that we've missed? Is there things that we can improve? How can we make this better? So please take the survey. But then also, I'm pretty excited to show this. If you click on the Reimagined City Bus comment, you can actually come into our route structure and zoom in and look around and get understand things like what are the timetables for this route, what it's going to run, and where would it go, so you can get all the way down into this is what the schedule would look like, if you'd like. But there's also the possibility that you can come in and add comments. And under my login, I can see what the comments are. Under the general public login, you wouldn't be able to see these. But the advantage to this is that we're then able to see on this North End circulator, somebody says, hey, I could easily catch this bus. Please put a stop very near 20th and Schuyler. And someone else, I like the bus stops at Shenandoah and Union. Thank you. This last one is a test, just to see that it can be done. But the general public is able to come in and drop comments to let us know, where, what works for them and what could be improved. So I on the Lafayette side of the river, the last bit of update I would say for this is that we are working actively with Ivy Tech on locating a transfer point here. To begin with, this transfer point is going to be paint on asphalt. Chancellor Bowdy has already agreed that we can use this section of his parking lot, and he's restriping it. And then we are actively working with Ivy Tech and YMCA on developing a feasibility study to build what I would say is a city bus size transfer center somewhere on the Ivy Tech property, or possibly straddling the property line between Ivy Tech and YMCA. And our initial goal at the moment, as we're working towards this, defining the feasibility study, is to build not only a transfer center, but a place for childcare, and even explore the possibility of being able to build affordable housing or mixed income housing somewhere in this area. And with that is Reimagine City Bus. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk. And if anybody would like me to talk to a group that you represent or that you're involved with, more than happy to come out and discuss this in more detail. I'm easily available and happy to discuss more. So thank you so much. And with that,
Thank you, Brian. Any additional questions for Brian before we move on with the agenda, or start the agenda technically? All right. Thank you very much, Brian. Really exciting. Oh, go ahead.
Nope. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to circle back to the beginning of the meeting and officially get us started and do a roll call for minutes. So I am calling to order this June 12th MPO Policy Board meeting at 2:26 p.m. The first item on our agenda is approval of minutes from the previous meeting. If you have those loaded. Oh, let me do a roll call first while they work on that. Tony Rosworski, absent. Dave Byers, absent. Gary Schroeder,
Present.
Cindy Murray,
Present.
Jody Hamilton, Mike Gibson,
Aye, here.
Steve Snyder,
Present.
Larry Leverins,
Here.
Debbie Calder,
Here.
And Aaron Easter here. All right. I assume everyone has had the opportunity to review the minutes. I'll give you just a minute and then call for a vote.
I move we approve the minutes from the previous meeting. I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All right. I'll go through the roll call vote. Gary Schroeder,
Aye.
Cindy Murray,
Aye.
Mike Gibson,
Aye.
Steve Snyder,
Aye.
Larry Leverance,
Aye.
Debbie Calder,
Aye.
and Aaron Easter. Aye. We have done the Reimagine City Bus Plan, which was the first item on our agenda. Doug, do you have anything to add to that plan or anything relative to it?
I do not.
Okay. We will move on to administrative modification to the funding year 2026 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program. Doug, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. As you all may remember, that if we process minor changes to the Transportation Improvement Program or TIP, we do that through a simple letter modification process. But as part of that process, we then let this committee know about those changes. We did process one earlier this week, and this is in regards to Tippecanoe County's North 9th Street project. The estimated construction cost has increased to $9,605,379. So we updated both the current TIP, the 2024 TIP, and then the new one that we just approved, the 26 TIP, to match those numbers. So fairly simple, straightforward. All we're doing is updating the numbers. It is going through the NDOT modification process at this time. Any comments or questions?
Any questions for Doug today? All right. Thank you, Doug. Moving on, our next item is an interlocal agreement for traffic counting supplies. Tim, you're up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is something that we do periodically. All of our LPAs are very good about taking traffic counts and sharing some of that data with us. But in order to take those traffic counts, they need some equipment to do that. So that equipment, of course, will wear out after use, and so it needs to be replaced periodically. So it has been a while since we've done that, and every time we do that, we kind of set up this interlocal agreement and get all the jurisdictions to sign on. I'm going to sort of briefly explain how we do this, and then I will definitely take questions at the end. So essentially, the short version of it is that we ask each jurisdiction how much or how many counters they need and how much tubing, which is one of the big supplies. These are done with those tubes that lay across the road. And then a few other small supplies, such as some nails and some mesh grips as well, which are part of the setup. So once we get those numbers, then we can pay for 80% of those with some of our funding up front. And then the jurisdictions only have to pay a 20% match. We will have to do a UPWP amendment to formalize that, which we can do after we get this interlocal agreement finalized. And so the rest of the interlocal agreement, this is page 1, which is most of it. It just kind of outlines everyone's responsibilities. So it talks about things like what happens in cases of maintenance. It mentions the fact that initially we, as the APC, are technically the owners of the equipment, but then after 5 years, it officially transfers to the local jurisdictions. So we've used this process before in the past. And that's kind of that. So I guess I'd stop for any questions.
Is this just a yearly agreement, I assume, or is this a 5-year agreement?
Yeah, it's typically 5 years at least. It's technically more so whenever needed. So our last one was actually 2018. So it's been a little bit more than 5 years. But we've kind of, in talking to the local government engineers, they needed some supplies. So we decided, well, it's time to get this out again.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Good question.
Any other questions for Tim?
Okay.
I think I needed a motion to
Well,
hear the
yeah,
first.
I did want to ask the committee about how we wanted to proceed with that. So obviously, although everyone that would sign this is represented on the committee, not everyone is here today. Notably, Mayor Rosworski, Dave Byers, and Jody Hamilton are not present, nor is any proxy from their organization. So we can definitely wait and present this again at future meetings. We can take this to those individuals separately, or perhaps if even the county council might like to, hear this for their information as well, so they know what's going on, I'd be happy to present to them. So we have a few options as to how we'd like to do this. So I'd just like kind of some guidance as to what you guys might think as to what would be an appropriate way to do this. Since again, not everyone's here, I'm a little leery of just approving signatures for when most of the signatories aren't here.
If there's no rush to get it done, maybe it would make sense to wait to the next meeting and then just make sure that when we send out the notice for the meeting that we say there are some important things that we need to vote on and have signatures.
I agree with Mike on our end. I think, I don't want to speak for Tony, but I would agree with Mike.
Yeah, I think that would be agreeable from our perspective as well. We can basically, essentially, since we know that everyone's good for the money, we can kind of go ahead and just buy the stuff and then clean it up later, so to speak. It's not too urgent, then we can get that formalized. I think we would be comfortable doing that, since we've had long-standing partnerships with all our jurisdictions, and we know that that's not going to be an issue. And we would like to get you the supplies so you can get out and do the work. That is one small constraint. So yeah, I think we'd be comfortable just going ahead and purchasing this. We've already talked to the company about how much this would cost, and we've gotten a quote, and we've distributed that to the engineers, so everyone should know how much they need. By the way, engineers, if for some reason you don't have that, please do let me know and we can get you those numbers, but I think I distributed that around. Okay, so yeah, we'll go ahead and leave that on the agenda for next month then. Okay.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tim. Don't go too far. I think you are on our next agenda item as well. The Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan recommendation clarifications.
Yes, thank you. So this one is a very unusual situation, so I'm going to just explain it to everyone. There isn't any action tied to this one at this month's meeting, but there will be at next month's meeting. So the Safe Streets and Roads for All is a federally created grant program, which localities can apply for. And in order to apply for project funding, you need a safety action plan. So we did complete one of those and get that approved. Now that was completed under the previous administration, the Biden administration. And this year, when the new administration rolled out the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, they made a few changes to that kind of last minute, so to speak. So in order to give ourselves the best possible chance to get some funding in the community, which we are partnering with Lafayette on to try to do a portion of South Street, we need to make a few small clarifications to the plan. The best way that I can describe this is that we are adding a couple of pages of information to a section. All the information is already in the plan. We're not making any changes. We're not adding or deleting any recommended projects. We're just putting more information in this one very specific section of the plan. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're working with a grant writer, and they had the opportunity to submit to a Federal Highway Administration kind of pre-screening sort of thing where they will look through applications and say if they notice anything that might be a potential concern to reviewers. And this was kind of flagged as, well, we're not sure about this one specific section, if that has enough information, even though it's in a section a few pages away in the plan. So just to make it as easy as possible on reviewers and give ourselves the best possible chance, we are going to make a small addition to the plan. So it will technically change the plan a little bit. And so we're going to put that together. We already have wording together for that. We've been working with Lafayette and the consultant on that. So we have that ready to go. But I just wanted to let you know that that will be coming next month for formal approval. We will be submitting an application near the end of June, which is when the deadline for this is. And then we will have I'm calling it the revised plan. Again, that's a pretty loose term, but we'll have the revised plan up on our website for potential public comment. And then if we get any, we'll let you know at the next meeting. And we'll be asking for your approval for those clarifications at the next meeting. So again, this is a very unusual situation. Wanted to kind of try to let everyone know, give you a heads up as to what's going on with that. So any questions?
All right, not hearing any questions. We will move on to the APC progress report. Our first item is the MPO update. City bus, there might be something before this, but the city bus bonus federal funds. Doug.
Again, good afternoon. Like to pass along some little known information regarding federal funding from the Federal Transit Administration is that typically, like road projects, the Federal Transit Administration has special federal funds where they provide money for operating assistance and for projects such as fixing buses, purchasing tires, et cetera, et cetera. So years ago, the Federal Transit Administration decided to put together some performance measures. So if you were able to meet one or more of these performance measures, you would get additional federal funding, whether it be you want to use it for capital assistance or project support. And that's called the Small Transit Intensive City Performance Data. And basically what we call it is STIC. Of course, we always love acronyms. This information or federal funding comes out every year, and we'd like to just show not only what city bus will receiving these special federal funds, but other transit systems around the state. And this table here, basically what you see highlighted in color, there are 6 performance measures. One is passenger miles per vehicle revenue miles, passenger miles per vehicle revenue hours, vehicle revenue miles per capita, vehicle revenue hours per capita, passenger miles per capita, and passenger trips per capita. So all these are calculated by information that is sent to the Federal Transit Administration from each transit system. The good news is that City Bus here has actually made 5 of the 6 goals, so they will receive additional federal funding. As you can see, they are receiving over $2.5 million with this special federal funding. So each goal that you hit or go over, you receive a little over $500,000. The city, the Bloomington Transit System, they only received 4, and then you can see 2 others actually managed to surpass 3 goals. I'd like to add that City Bus has always been a top performer in receiving these small transit intensive city performance funds. They generally receive or hit 5 of the 6 goals. One year, not so long ago, they did actually meet all 6. And as you can see, the goal for the second column, 73.55. The number for a city bus was 71.16, so they were very close. So this information is pretty much unknown. Nobody really follows this, but it was good news for us. So we thought it would be good to share this with this committee. So any comments or questions?
Yeah, Doug, I got a question. Can you explain the density? Like Bloomington has less of a population, but a higher density with compared to Lafayette. Can you briefly explain that?
Yeah, it's basically looking at, of course, the population is fairly straightforward. And, when we're looking at this, the population, it's basically looking at the service area. and then the density is calculated by how many miles or square miles are in the service area. So they are, their service area is much smaller than ours because we're serving, or City Bus is serving, Lafayette and West Lafayette. So it's a larger geographical area, while the Bloomington is only just serving Bloomington itself.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Doug? All right, quarterly project tracking. Tim.
Okay, let's see. So I'm just going to hit a couple of these as usual. If you do have any questions afterwards, even if it's about something that I didn't present about, do feel free to ask. So a couple things I wanted to mention, starting with Tippecanoe County. So the letting for the North 9th Street Road Bridge project may be pushed back to January due to delays in the environmental review. So this is something that we are kind of seeing as a little bit of a trend, where because of some staffing concerns at the state and federal level, it seems like it's taking a bit longer to get some of these environmental reviews processed. So that is just going to be a future challenge. That's kind of the reality of the situation. There's not really anything we can do about it other than try to make sure that as local jurisdictions and with our consultants that we're getting things submitted far enough in advance that will give reviewers extra time so that we won't miss milestones. And again, this isn't something that's Tippecanoe County's fault per se. It's just something we're going to have to watch in the future. So then the next thing I wanted to point out was that phase 1 of the Morehouse Road project was open to traffic in November. And the punch list for that phase has been completed, which is a good milestone for that project. Phase 2 is getting started with construction. They had some utility things that kind of pushed back that a little bit from its original timeline, but it should be on track to go now. I did also want to mention the county bridge inspection program. It is now in both TIPs. So as Doug shared, we are in that kind of weird time area where we have multiple TIPs that we have to update. So that's why it's now in both TIPs. Hopefully NDOT will be able to figure out how to get their STIP approved through Federal Highway, and then we can go down just to one. But we don't have a timeline for that yet. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. So for now, it's in both. Moving on to Lafayette, the South 9th Street project was split into phases. Around 65% of the right-of-way has been secured for different phases of that project. And some of those phases are on tight timelines, but they are still on track to hit project milestones, which is good. That's a big project and also a joint project. There is a bit of a component with Tippecanoe County with the bridge as well. So I think that'll be a great project for Lafayette. So glad to see that they're going to be able to anticipate that they will hit those milestones. And then for West Lafayette, we are continuing to monitor the Soldiers Home Road project. We do have one of our staff members attending bi-monthly project meetings. We know that that one did get delayed due to some environmental concerns, such as I referenced earlier. So yeah, we're definitely keeping an eye on that one and happy to partner with West Lafayette staff. And I think that project's in a better place now than it was, even a year ago. So that's some good news there. Any questions about those projects or any other ones I didn't mention?
Thank you, Tim. Doug, I believe you have the next 3 items. If you'll kick us off with 2025 MPO funding obligation and then into 2026, please.
Sure, I'll be more than glad to do that. Every month we present a report basically giving the status of the amount of federal funds that we have obligated for the specific federal year or state fiscal year. And as we reported last month, for our area, we have obligated all of our FY25 funds. So this year or this month, instead of just providing the same information, we thought it would be of interest to show how other MPOs are performing around the state. At this time, if you haven't obligated your 25 funds, well, you lose it. So as you can see, the on the left-hand side, the list of MPOs and the percent of funds that have been obligated. And yes, there are some that did not obligate all. For example, Louisville, they only obligated roughly half of their federal funds. Looking down further, Anderson, they obligated roughly 70% of their federal funds. And looking down, two areas within the Northern Indiana Regional Plan Commission, or what we call NERC MPO, they only obligated roughly just under or over 60% of their federal funds. And with all of the numbers you can see, gives you an idea of the federal funds they receive. The one thing I would like to point out is, yes, Indianapolis does look rather odd because it's all zero. They have actually worked out a deal with NDOT in terms of the federal funds that goes to Indianapolis. Well, that basically goes to NDOT, and then the amount of federal funds going that would go to Indianapolis actually are not federal funds, excuse me, are state funds, so they can use it on other projects. The one caveat in doing that, or not, I'm sorry, let me get this straight, are state funds that can go to whatever projects they want to construct. They don't have to follow the federal regulations. The caveat with this is that they do not receive a one-to-one match. The amount that they receive is less than the amount of federal funds that they would be given. So we thought this would be of interest to everyone. Are there any questions or comments regarding this? I'll go on to the next one. And unfortunately, this is a bit of sad news or disappointing news. When we developed the TIP earlier this year, we were given a number, roughly $6.54 million, to allocate our federal funds, and we did. We went through that process. Very recent, we received new information from NDOT. What they did was finalize their fiscal year 2025 federal funding. So instead of being an estimate for 25, it was now an actual dollar amount. And then they also received money that other states could not spend. So the good news is that, yeah, we should be receiving additional federal funds. But the bad news is that when NDOT looked at the what we should get versus what we estimated, well, unfortunately, it was less. So between those two, we are now receiving $6,310,000 and change, which is roughly $230,000 less than what we allocated in developing the TIP earlier this year. So what's the impact of that? It will probably, or at least possibly, impact in Lafayette the South 9th Street project, and then our emergency vehicle preemption project, the one phase that's for West Lafayette, and then Soldiers Home Road for the right-of-way phase for phase one. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to be meeting with Jeremy and Natalia, and we are going to start looking at these projects and the funding more in depth to see, unfortunately, I have to say, which areas can we reduce. And then once we do that, we'll go through the TIP amendment process and both update the new TIP, and then we'll update the current TIP, the 24 TIP, just in case Federal Highway and the Federal Transit Administration doesn't approve the STIP in a timely manner. So we thought we would give everyone a heads up with this sad news, disappointing news. So I'm sorry to report it. We are not receiving as much as what NDOT initially told us. So any comments or questions regarding that? I'll go on to the next item, the 18-month letting list. Overall, there's not much to report. Many of the projects shown have remained the same and are on track for the letting. Project number 1, which was a small structure pipelining project on I-65. Tim has the information up on the screen. It was on the May 14th bid letting. The engineer's estimate was just under $1 million. And as you can see, the low bid was actually for $1.8 million. So with the rules NDOT has to work with, they are actually allowed to award this project, and it is moving forward. The estimated completion date is May 29th of next year. Going back to the first page, projects 8, 9, and 10. Those are the South 9th Street projects. Still continue to be on a January 4th bid letting, or yes, January 14th bid letting, excuse me. Project 13, that was shown previously as a November 2025 letting, but now is on a January 2026 bid letting. And we have a new project at the very bottom, traffic signals. And this is actually one of the emergency vehicle preemption signal projects that we have. So any other questions or any questions or comments regarding this?
Thank you, Doug. Is there any other business from the group today? All right. Now is the portion for citizen comments. Aria, if you could prepare us to monitor for citizen comments for the next minute. All right, she is timing and muted, so. As they used to say on the Daily Show, this is your moment of zen.
I like moments of silence.
All right, there are no public comments at this time. That brings us to the final action. If there's no other business from the group, which is adjournment. I'll take a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All right. And I think I still have to do this one by roll call. So, Gary Schroeder,
Aye.
Cindy Murray,
Aye.
Mike Gibson,
Aye.
Steve Snyder,
Aye.
Larry Leverance,
Aye.
Debbie Calder,
Aye.
and Aaron Easter. Aye. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't
Aaron.
get early. Bye-bye.
You did great, Mike. No big deal.